This is Into the Fray, and I'm Austin L. Gregory, your host. Today's episode, we are in a series going through the book of Revelation. Now, Christian or not, the majority of people listening to this already have an idea about the book of Revelation. It's various mysteries, hidden secrets, and whatnot, but at Into the Fray, we want not to just give you information on what the book of Revelation is about, but in a way, we want to teach you how to read the book of Revelation for yourself. So today's episode actually has a blog post that goes along with it. The blog is a more condensed version of this episode today. So if you go to the link in the description, you will be able to find the blog that goes along with this specific episode and have our notes essentially for whatever we cover in this episode. To be clear though, you still want to listen to this episode, even though there will be some crossover, because this episode is more of a discussion of what's covered in the blog. We elaborate more, hit points we cannot get to in the blog, and so much more. So throughout the series we do on Revelation, go check out our blog that goes along with this episode. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook for more helpful tools that will help you study the book for yourself. And join us as we enter into the fray. All right, this is Into the Fray. I'm Austin.
I'm Berlin.
And this week we're starting our series going through the book of Revelation. I'm going to start off by just asking a simple question. What has been your experience with talks about the end times or how the world will end?
Not amazing.
Not amazing?
No.
My experience, though, was growing up, going to a barber shop, and that barber every time was like talking about the end times, talking about how he can't wait for God to punish the world for all its evil. He's going to torch this place, and you better not be one of the ones left behind in the rapture. Otherwise, it's going to be bad for you. And it was just a very doomy and dark view of the end times. And it made me think that God's like, he's saving up all his hatred for humanity to spite us one day.
He's going to burn everything to the ground.
Yeah. So do you have any?
I've heard many different things that people say, and it's always negative. Haven't heard one like good thing about end times. I feel like there's things I've heard in a different church where they're like, no, we're all gonna go to hell, like everyone, no, even if you're saved and like you do everything right, and you're gonna burn is how they put it.
How did they view the people who aren't in church when it came to the end times?
They're done for now.
Yeah. Was it
they
more
can't
of like
save themselves?
We can't wait for them to burn?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like they're ready for you to get your judgment.
The only time I think I ever heard growing up someone say something positive about the end times was, like in regards in that conversation, was Benji Rowland, the pastor at Journey Church in Tifton, say that he doesn't pray for the end to come soon because he wants to have as much time as he can to get more people into heaven. That was the only positive thing I've ever heard in regards to end times growing up. The rest of it was, don't be left behind, rapture's coming, these people are going to see, and talk like that.
It's always been like, not the floodgates, but like the image of floodgates with a fire. I don't know what to call that, but it's always like that's what's going to break open onto the earth.
So it's going to be like Noah and the ark, except this time
it's fire.
You're going to burn.
And nobody's making it unless you're like the pastor.
Yeah. So what would be the tone? Did we describe that as?
Negative.
Dark, gloomy, vengeful, maybe?
Yeah. And then kind of greedy, because it's like, well, if you aren't me of this church, you're not being saved. Like, you're
arrogance.
You're not giving as much money as I am.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. So have you tried reading the book of Revelation recently?
Not recently. When I was in high school, when I first started going to church, I didn't know that people really associated the book of Revelation with the end times.
Yeah.
Because
you're an outsider.
Yeah, I still don't understand Revelation because I haven't finished it.
Yeah.
But we were going through it and we were introduced to it. Is it 7 letters?
There's 7 letters in there.
The 7 letters to the churches. And each Sunday we just read a letter to the church and we're like, how can we apply who is it? I forgot.
John.
What is he telling these churches And how do we see any of this like in our life and in our church? How can we fix it? Like, are we idolizing? How do we fix idolizing? It was never trumpets and stuff that I hear. Like, when I hear someone talk about Revelation, it's like,
probably just didn't get to that part of it.
We weren't there yet.
Yeah. So it's a tough read. There happens to be a ton of really odd images and symbols like the trumpets that some people literally think will hear a loud trumpet noise and it'll be the sign that Jesus is here.
I remember thinking that at one point, and I was babysitting on Moody.
Yeah.
And they have it was
Moody's the Air Force Base.
Yes.
To be clear.
They have their I don't know if it's a trumpet what they play, but at certain times it goes off, and the kids are in bed and I'm doing homework, and I'm like, I have a piercing migraine, like I'm in tears just waiting for their parents to get home so I can go home. And I hear this and I'm like, oh my gosh, am I like hallucinating the end times?
I remember there was a false alarm I can't remember if it was something that happened in Hawaii years ago where this alarm went off across the island and people thought that it was the end times. I think...
No, they got the tsunami alarm that goes off daily. Every
not
day.
That alarm. I think it was threat of nuclear.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But it was an accident. It wasn't supposed to go off or something like that. And Jeff Durbin and that whole team of pastors were over there, and they first thing that they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's the end, because they thought it was the trumpet. I could be wrong about how that story went. Anyways, there's tons of really odd images and symbols that don't make sense to the untrained eye, but those images and symbols can also be very exciting as we hear from a wide range of people speculating about what all this means, meaning that when you go on TikTok or you go on YouTube or whatever and you start trying to understand what these symbols and signs mean in the book of Revelation, there are a ton of people out there who can really hype you up on trying to connect these to certain images or symbols today, or like the nuclear alarm going off. It can be very exciting because you can be like, oh, so that the trumpets mean that a nuclear bomb is about to go off or whatever, or whatever. There's tons of crazy connections people try to make to the symbols in the book of Revelation. I'm going to start off by breaking down, though, 5 ways to read the book of Revelation. That's the preterist. They are people who read Revelation through the lens of first century people, meaning past tense. They seek to read Revelation as a message to the first century churches dealing with issues these churches were facing at the time.
Is that how you read?
Kinda. Historicists read the book of Revelation as a grand view of history from the first century onward. Futurist, or predictive, as Michael Gorman talks about it, is they read Revelation with the eyes of future events. They read Revelation as if it's talking about only future things. And then idealist, or theopoetic, as Michael Gorman also calls it, is they approach the book of Revelation as a book of timeless truths dealing with God, nations, and the overarching plan for our world. The approach we're going to be taking is we'll be taking a fifth approach. And it's kind of an alternative way to reading Revelation. This approach pulls from the other approaches to a degree. So that's where you're like, oh, do you read it like the preterist way?
Yeah.
Yes, but also idealist, that last one.
What was the last one again?
The idealist is or theopoetic approach. They read the book of Revelation as a book of timeless truths dealing with God, nations, and the overarching plan for the world. So the meaning they can get out of the book, they're going to take and apply it to today.
So when I was talking about Sunday school, when I was in high school, is that more
There's probably a bit of that in there, yeah.
Because we're taking we took it as they wrote the letters to them, and then was like, how can we apply that?
Yeah. In this fifth approach, we will read Revelation through the lens of the first century Christians reading this. So we're going to take that preterist approach. We're going to try to understand the book of Revelation as the people who first got it. They first read it. The people it's actually addressed to, which we'll get into a little bit. We're going to try to read it the way they would read it. We're going to try to understand it the way they would understand it. And we'll place ourselves on the ground of those first century Christians and take the words written as they would have taken them. While we do this, we'll also pull from the idealist approach and seek to read Revelation in the context it was written as a way to interpret our present realities. So what they got from reading Revelation in the first century, we're going to take that meaning and we're going to see if it can apply to our time today. That's where we got to make the distinction. We got to take what the original audience took from Revelation and how they interpreted it and how they took it to mean and apply it to our times. We can't take our meaning from the book of Revelation and apply it to our times.
Yeah, because that's not right.
Yeah. We don't read it as 21st century people and then apply it as 21st century people.
Because it wasn't wrote for 21st century people.
Yeah. We read it, we take it from first century people and we try to understand it that way and then apply it to our 21st century context the way they would in the first century context.
This is very random. Wasn't there one about like a golden statue, like they were idolizing? Is that a different book? The church was like idolizing this like golden statue. They like knew God was real. You can cut all of this out.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't remember what it was. They like knew God was real, but they kept idolizing this statue, and it was made of gold, I thought.
There are illusions. So that kind of sounds like the Exodus story, or they're like worshiping the golden calf.
Yeah.
Okay. So then that is an important part.
Okay, I'm sorry. It was just
a lot of, and we'll get into this, a lot of Revelation is going to have a lot to do with Exodus. And it's going to have a lot to do with Old Testament imagery and symbols, and it's going to bring to mind all those things. So the more you can remember the story of Exodus and the Old Testament, the better you will be to understand Revelation, because there's nothing new.
That is helpful.
Yes, it's very
no way. I don't think anything that I said was accurate to that story.
You're good. Who wrote it and to whom? In verse 1 and 2 of chapter 1, we are told that this revelation of Jesus the Anointed One about what must soon take place was made known by sending his messenger to his servant John. John could very well be the beloved disciple, Jesus' best friend, or it could be a John we have yet to meet in church history. Which is more of what we would lean to, is we don't know who this John is. We just know he was influential.
I just assumed it was John.
Most people would, because they read John in the beginning of Revelation. They're like, oh yeah, John. I read that book in the Bible, and he talked about his story of Jesus. Yeah. And then he also wrote these 3 letters later on called 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. But it's the scholars we're trusting in this are the ones who would say, yeah, we don't actually think this is for sure that same John. Could be, but there's no like good, the writing style is very different. And so that's probably a good little distinction to make as well, is when you're trying to figure out who wrote a book of the Bible, like when you're dealing with Paul, there's a lot of debate on which letters Paul actually wrote, because typically you're going to write in the same style you've always written in. Like there might be some difference in like some progression as you develop as a writer. Like if you looked at my writing today versus my writing when I was at Grace Baptist Church.
But you'd still be able to distinguish that.
There's some difference. But yeah, there's going to be a personality there that's the same. And the difference between the Gospel of John and Revelation written by John, there's some difference in the personality that make people believe this is a completely different John. So what we do know about John, though, is that John has been exiled to the island of Patmos. Scott McKnight says, long before he wrote Revelation, John had been teaching these ideas that made Rome very nervous. From our perspective today, Rome's response to John seems very overdone. It seems crazy that they would just send this Christian off into the random island of Patmos and like exile him from the rest of the world. Seems like, why not just kill him or something? He did not have a sword, though. Like that's kind of what Scott McKnight's talking about when he says Rome's response to John seems very overdone, is John did not have a sword. There is no army to follow him, just a few pockets of insignificant people singing spirituals or singing songs about Jesus whom they claimed as their Lord. It doesn't seem like much of a threat. It'd be like sending Robbie, our pastor, to the island of Patmos. And you're like, but he ain't got like a gun on him, like going up to City Hall. Like he doesn't seem that dangerous. He's just preaching and people are singing songs about the Jesus he worships. Scott McKnight also says Patmos was not a penal colony, nor was it a deserted, uninhabitable island. John was exiled to the island to remove him from any position of influence in Western Asia Minor, which is where these churches would be. John is writing, as he says in verse 4, to the 7 churches in Asia, which is where you brought up the 7 letters. Mm-hmm. What this means is that John is not writing to you or to me. He's writing to first century people using the language of Old Testament prophets to help them understand how to live faithfully in the age they are in. So why is John writing? What was the message that you were told of why Revelation was written?
I didn't read all of Revelation. I still need to do that.
That's okay.
So from where we were starting was just through the letters.
If you grew up like me, then you'll likely remember the talks about the rapture happening at any moment. Or maybe
we didn't talk about that.
Yeah. You remember reading the books or watching the movies of the Left Behind series. Maybe you felt the fear of being one of those left behind at Jesus' surprise coming, which is something me and Bryce Bora felt one day at field day in school, in elementary school. We walked out on field day and nobody was out there. And the sky was kind of dark and gloomy, and we're like, oh my gosh, we were left behind. And then all the other classes came out after us, and we're like, oh, okay, so we're good.
That's silly.
But maybe you felt the pain of thinking about how hopeless our world truly is because of the message being preached that the world is getting worse day by day, and will only continue to.
Yeah, it was, these churches were doing wrong, and here's ways to, like, fix what you're doing and to grow.
Yeah.
So that was, because that's the section we were reading, that's what, like, we were told about it, is, like...
Do you remember any talk about being lukewarm?
Yes. I remember
the take on that?
I remember, I can see the room that, like, we sat in, where I was in the front row, Miss Dawn was teaching, and, like, to my right, behind her, was, it's a picture of, like, a cup of coffee, and it's like, are you lukewarm?
Oh God. But you don't remember, like, what lukewarm meant and how they taught it?
I'm gonna say that I might be wrong on how this is, because I'm not sure if I know it properly. To be lukewarm is to just, it's like believing but not doing, like, so it's like you believe but you're not doing any action of believing. It's like, okay. But to be like hot would be doing everything and, like, crazy. You're
like hot for Jesus.
Yeah.
And cold is
no Jesus.
Okay, so yeah, that is trash. And we'll get into that later.
But like I said, I might be remembering.
But that's how we were taught it growing up in church. I was like,
that's what I feel like I remember being told.
Yeah. It's like hot for Jesus, and if you're cold, that means you have a cold heart and you need Jesus to live.
But you don't want to be lukewarm.
Yeah. Lukewarm is like sitting on the fence, you haven't chose a side yet.
But then they make both sides seem bad, because when they talk about, like, being too hot, it's like, well, you're doing all the action, but you don't have the heart. Like, is it really real? Wow.
Okay, yeah. There's so much wrong with...
But I could also be, like, remembering it wrong.
You could be. Or
I need my notebook.
So much of what you're saying, though, is exactly how a lot of churches are taught. So it's not crazy to say.
And we didn't talk much about lukewarm. I just remember looking at that poster so many times, and then she had said what it, like, we talked about it one time, and she, like, was pointing at the poster. She was like, do you want lukewarm coffee, hot coffee, or coffee? So
if you grew up like this, hearing that type of message, you may believe the message of Revelation by John is one of dire warning. It came off like a last-ditch effort from God to end the canon of the Bible by giving future generations a secret message about how all this will end in doom and gloom. Meaning, like, it's like God, wrote the entire Bible, and then he's like, oh, yeah, frick, I got to talk to these people in the 21st century. Let me write them a book just for them. It'll have a bunch of secret messages that they have to, like,
decipher.
Yeah, decipher, like National Treasure or something. And hopefully they'll get the message, and they'll be able to figure out when I'm coming back. And that is...
So what about, like, the 31st century people?
Yeah. So these people, they're going to view the book of Revelation as a way to decode the mystery of when Jesus will rapture us good folks out, or be able to spot the mark of the beast that will likely doom whoever it takes forever. And, a lot of people have figured out that the mark of the beast was COVID, like the COVID vaccine.
Yeah,
or the Neuralink that,
mark of the beast.
Elon Musk is putting in us.
Oh, his chip.
But the goal I want us to accomplish today is to ask the question, what if? What if we got all that wrong? So,
scary question.
Did you know the term rapture is never used in the book of Revelation?
I know that from you.
Yes. Did you know the term Antichrist is also not used in the book of Revelation? Those are the two words that most people would associate with the book of Revelation, and it's not in there at all. Now, there's passages that people think are alluding to it, but those terms aren't actually used. So for it to be such a dire warning to like tell you the secret of when the rapture is going to happen, it doesn't actually talk about the rapture.
So what is the actual definition of rapture, if you know it off the top? Because in my mind, I don't feel like it means hell opening on earth.
No, that's not it.
But that's always how I feel like it's explained.
It's the transporting of believers to heaven at the second coming of Christ.
So, random question again.
What?
You said it's the transporting of believers?
Yes. What happens to unbelievers?
No, what about the people who slightly believe, but they've never, like...
You're either in or you're out. You can't be lukewarm.
Yeah.
That's the point of that book, that church, remember?
Sorry, this is just a point I remember about the rapture at a different church is babies.
What about babies?
In the rapture, they automatically go to hell.
Well, okay then.
Yeah, because
sounds very Calvinist.
They cannot be saved.
That's interesting.
But if you think about it, how can a baby be sinful?
Let me be like kind about it. That's like hyper Calvinism, which is if Calvinism believes that there are what they call an elect group of people who are chosen before the foundation of the world, that they're going to be saved. Yeah, that's predestination. They're going to be saved no matter what. This specific group that God chose. The rest of the people aren't chosen. Within that view, you'd say, like, the pushback would be like, well, that's not fair. Like, what if the people who aren't chosen want to believe in Jesus? Their response would be, well, no one wants to believe in Jesus. If you remember Romans, no one is righteous, no, not one. No one does good. And what they'd say is the heart is deceitful above all ways, which I think is a psalm. And they'd say that applies even to babies. No one is born good, which theologically you can make an argument for. But that takes away that when they start saying babies aren't going to heaven I think that's missing kind of the point of the message of Christianity. You're getting into the weeds that aren't meant to get into. So, and that's like a whole side topic.
Do babies go to heaven?
That is not an answer I'm giving. Did you know that Revelation did not say anything new according to the rest of the Bible? If you believe that the book of Revelation, like a lot of people, is all about the future, and it's that secret message to 21st century people, a lot of people would say, oh, well, then that's where we take the locusts that are mentioned in the book of Revelation, and we're like, oh, that must mean it's the helicopters.
The bug?
Yes.
When I worked at the daycare, that was a big thing. So we found
Problem is, what you mentioned earlier, the book of Exodus, that's a plague that was used in Exodus. So when they mention locusts, we should think back to the book of Exodus and be like, oh, what did it mean for them?
Yeah.
That should probably interpret how we read it.
So like a cross-reference.
Yes. Did you know that the early church reading this letter would not have read it thinking about us at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why would they think about us?
They did not.
The letter was specifically written to them.
Yeah. And also they probably weren't, most people probably thought God was coming back. Like the Messiah was coming back. Or when was this?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, they didn't think we were going to make it this far, right?
I think this is an episode of the podcast where I read a blog called The Second Coming. And I think I talked about this. I could be wrong. I might not have posted it. But in this blog, I talked about how every generation throughout church history has thought they're the generation Jesus is coming back.
Yeah.
It's arrogant of us to think that. No, but like we got it right.
I mean, how many times in our life was the world ending and like everything?
Yeah. Even Paul, who wrote a lot of the New Testament, thought Jesus was coming back during his lifetime because that's what people naturally assumed. But when he was talking about the second coming, it was very different than what we're thinking about today, which is a whole nother topic. Revelation is not a book to prepare us for our secret passage out of this world that we have left ruin. Revelation is a book that encouraged and uplifted the Christians of old in a time of intense persecution. It's meant to be an encouraging book, not dark and gloomy. So, what is Revelation? In verse 1, you don't have your Bible, do you? Yes, you do. We're at church. we're recording this on Sunday, so if you start hearing the band playing a little bit, that's what's going on. Is the band practicing right now, and we're recording during their practice.
Where am I going?
Revelation chapter 1, verse 1.
Do I need to say which Bible this is? Because mine's not the same as yours right now.
Oh, you're not reading CSV?
I
ESV.
didn't bring that one with me this morning.
You can read ESV.
The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show to his servants the things that must soon take place. He made it known by sending his angel to his servant John.
That is, in that verse, John is telling us what type of letter this is, and it's a revelation of Jesus. Do you know what revelation even means?
Do I know what a revelation is?
Yeah, what does revelation even mean? Just a word.
I do not know, actually.
Okay. If
is that a movement? No, that's the wrong word.
No. It means the revealing. So if there's if you have a revelation of something, you've had something revealed to you that you didn't know before. John is revealing something of importance to the audience of the 7 churches. Another word that could replace revelation is the word apocalypse. Do you know what apocalypse means? Like, what do you think of when you think of apocalypse? Zombies, exactly. Apocalyptic literature was a type of Jewish literature, think of Daniel or the book of Ezekiel, that would recount a prophet's symbolic dreams or visions that reveal a heavenly perspective on history in light of its final outcome. That's a quote from Tim Mackey. John also calls this book a prophecy in verse 3. Where is verse 3? You want to read verse 3?
Blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of this prophecy, and blessed are the ones who hear and who keep what is written in it, for the time it is near. Sorry, I was being kicked the whole time I was reading that.
No, you're good. My wife's pregnant. Actually, probably not by the time this comes out.
Yeah, probably not.
I think, you've had the baby. Congratulations.
She's kicking.
So in verse 3, we have that word prophecy. A prophecy in God's word, a prophecy is God's word spoken through a prophet. It's another line from Tim Mackey. So John calls this book a prophecy. What do you think of when you hear the word prophecy?
It's like a vision and a fulfillment of someone is saying. A
prediction.
Yeah, a prediction. Like,
you go to the psychic and they give you a prophecy about how you're going to die.
And like the fulfillment of it. So like the prophecy of like, we're reading Matthew, of like Jesus and Moses.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
that's interesting.
Jesus is fulfilling the prophecies.
Yeah. So we've been reading in our couples Bible study the book of Matthew, and where we're at in the book of Matthew, the first 3 chapters, is talking about how there's these lines in the Old Testament about someone in the wilderness preparing a way for Jesus, alluding to that's what John the Baptist eventually does. So it's like this prophecy has been, I don't know if predictive would be the right word, because I don't know if that was their goal, was like, we're predicting the future when we say there's this person in the wilderness. But then John does come and he does fulfill that prophecy. But I feel like,
I don't know, it's like a fulfillment of words spoken before.
Yes. I like how you said that better.
Thanks.
When John calls this book a prophecy, he is putting it in the long line of prophecies in the Old Testament, giving it the same weight as those books of old. So the book of Revelation, John equates that with all those prophecies about how Jesus was coming and how John the Baptist was coming, all those types of prophecies. He's putting them up there. A prophecy would be given by God through a prophet to either comfort or warn people during a time of crisis, which kind of shapes the book, how we're going to approach the book of Revelation in a different way. It's not going to be, we're looking towards the future, this is a message for us about how the world's going to end, and we got to like read it to decipher how we're going to escape the hell to come.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun.
Sorry, it made me think of the Croods.
But instead, it's a book written to encourage the Christians of the time. Persecution is getting heavy on them, and their lives are at risk every day. And John is writing this to encourage them, to be like, hey, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. There's a way to make it through this. And there's a place you can find victory in that's not in whether you live to see the next day. To summarize all this, John is writing John is writing apocalyptic literature to reveal a prophecy concerning the 7 churches of Asia in the first century, not to us. This letter is not written to you or me, though we may pull truths from this letter to apply to our lives. This revelation, though, is being written to comfort and uplift those first century churches in a time of crisis. Now, one of the books I've used, I'm actually reading through it right now. The first book I used to help prepare me to take us through the book of Revelation was Scott McKnight's book, which is Revelation for the Rest of Us. He wrote that with Cody Matchett. The other book that I'm reading right now is by Michael Gorman, and it's called Reading Revelation Responsibly. In that book, he says, Revelation is not about the Antichrist, but about the living Christ. It's not about a rapture out of this world, but about faithful discipleship in this world. That is, like every other New Testament book, Revelation is about Jesus Christ, a revelation of Jesus Christ, and about following him in obedience and love. If anyone asks, why read the apocalypse, which is the word for Revelation, the unhesitatingly answer must be to know Christ better. So how would you explain, I guess, that of like how we've talked about how people typically read Revelation and how we're going to approach it. Do you think you can make a distinction?
Wait, like of the 2 different ways?
Yeah. Of how, like, the difference between how people usually approach it and how we're going to approach it.
People usually approach it as a gloomy, dark, scary read of what is to happen to us in the future. And they pull symbols that are not accurate, and then we're going to read it in a historical way of we're taking a look in the past and putting ourselves in the shoes of these churches that are being wrote to, and then we're looking at that and seeing how we can apply it to us now, and not in a futuristic type of way, more of a, okay, what does it truly mean?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. More of a brighter side.
Yeah, because it's actually a more hopeful book. That's the shocking thing to me was I remember listening to Matt Chandler preach on this, on the book of Revelation a few years ago, and Matt Chandler blew me away when he said this. This message cannot mean for us what it did not mean for them. Which is a very simple way of putting it, of we can't read Revelation.
As us.
Yeah, as us. It's probably not grammatically correct, I don't think.
It's okay.
But it works. We can't read it as 21st century people. We got that, which is a key to reading any book of the Bible. This is just like good hermeneutics, which is how you study the Bible. That's what that word means. You approach the text on its own terms. You don't bring any baggage in. You don't bring any preconceptions, misconceptions, or whatever. You come to it like a blank slate, which we'll get into more later. But simply, like, you don't read Revelation bringing in all the stuff you've heard before and trying to figure out, okay, I remember hearing that this is about the apocalypse and how the end of the world's going to come, and like there's going to be wars and rumors of wars and all this stuff. Like the world's going to get really bad. So let me figure out when it's going to happen by reading Revelation. You don't approach it like that.
And that's how, if you take the preconception and that's how you're going to perceive it.
Yes. We all have preconceptions. I think that's not a bad thing. Like we have ideas. Yeah, that's human. We all have ideas about how things should go, or our initial ideas about it. And it's good to be self-aware about that, so that when you come to read a Bible, you can put aside your preconceptions, your initial ideas, and say, okay, let me try to understand it on its own terms. It's like, I think we talked about this before in the technology episode. You had talked about how one of the dangers technology has is you get an idea of somebody before you even meet them.
And it's false.
Yeah. Is you can go look at someone's social media, scroll, and you're like, okay, sorority girl, she be partying and drinking. God knows who she be sleeping with, But then that's the danger what technology can do. Is it can give you a false reality to where you judge someone before you know them. And then when you do get to know them, you find out, oh my gosh, she's like the most like Christian girl ever. She got purity ring.
So we have to stop judging Revelation.
Yes. And we just read it. We have to bury ourselves into the world of the first century, which also means we don't go to read Revelation trying to be a blank slate, but we just get our leather crafted Bibles and we open Revelation with no study notes or anything, and we just read it, and then we try to figure out, we say, God, please speak to me what this means.
No, read, if I don't know if this is in every Bible or if it's just like the study Bibles, but like read like who the author is and like where they're from, what's the theme and purpose, what are some problems to understand in the story, the key themes, your timeline.
That's where it's important to get a good study Bible. And I would even guard against getting, I have an ESV study Bible, which is what you're reading out of too.
And then we have
she's got a girl version,
a CSB.
Yeah, I would probably, that wouldn't be my first choice. It's not a bad choice, it's just not my first choice.
Yeah.
My first choice would be, if you're trying to understand the book of Revelation on the grounds of first century people, then don't go to a study Bible that's theology driven, which is what most study Bibles are. Go to a study Bible that is more of like, we're going to put you in the context of those people. We want you to understand the world they're in. We want you to see what they saw when they heard about the church of Ephesus. Where was the church of, what did it look like in that time period and stuff like that. And so that's where I would recommend the NIV Cultural Study Bible, Cultural Background Study Bible, which is the one I use a lot to study.
It's very helpful when we are studying to have, we have like 4 or 5 Bibles on the table and we're like referencing.
So yeah, that's where it's like helpful is when me and Berlin are doing our couples Bible study, we say we're reading Matthew right now. Me and Berlin will read Matthew chapter 1 and we'll take separate notes and like we'll do this on our own time apart from each other. And I'm using my NIV Cultural Study Bible mostly. She is using
my CSB, and then I'm going back to my ESV because those are the 2 that I have. Yeah.
And where hers is going to help her like understand the theology behind a lot of it. It'll give some like cultural context, but typically those Bibles are more like systematic theology. They're trying to frame you the theological framework. Mine is purely like, no, this is what the ruins are today. This is the serpent in Genesis. That's actually a very common symbol in the ancient Middle Eastern context, and here's all the other references to serpents of that time period.
Yeah, it's like a culture.
Yeah, it's gonna pull from other religious texts from that time period that you've never heard of. Whereas her Bible is more like, no, this is what church history has understood this passage to mean. And so then when we come together, we share our notes, and it helps because I'm giving the background and she's giving some theological framework to help us understand the text, which I think helps.
Yeah. I love that we're like ending this with like, oh, this is how like we read our Bible, by the way. We also, like, you read other, like, how you're reading Revelation is you're also not just reading the book in the Bible, you're reading scholars' works.
So, yeah, I'll touch on that for a second. I'm reading scholars and not pastors because pastors are idiots.
Oh.
No.
Hot take.
Yeah, we'll be honest. I'm not a big fan of when pastors write books about the Bible because they're usually more theologically driven than historically. And my goal when I read the Bible is I want to understand it the way the people at the time understood it. Sadly, and I understand why it happens, but a lot of pastors, when they're preaching, they say they're trying to, teach us the text or whatever. I'm not trying to sound super like cynical or skeptical or whatever, but this is just an observation I made. When I was really into the Reformed movement and like the Calvinist branch, they'd say, let's read the text for what it says. Okay. These people also went to a Presbyterian college and they learned Presbyterian theology and they learned how to connect the Bible and its scripture to Presbyterian doctrine. Yeah. When I went to I took a couple Bible classes, in college.
You went to college?
Yeah, it was through a Presbyterian college, very highly reformed, and it was tough because I was reading the text and I was having to come to conclusions that were very Presbyterian.
And not the conclusions.
And not Christian. I think that's an important distinction. You just be self-aware. It's not like a good, bad thing. It's just being self-aware enough to say, hey, we don't want to read the Bible as a Baptist. We want to read the Bible first as a follower of Jesus. And if we end up in a Baptist church, cool. Like, that's fine. Like, it's okay to have opinions on how baptism should go or how church leadership should go. But that shouldn't be our goal when we read the Bible. We are Christian before we are any denomination. Mm-hmm. And that's how we want to read the Bible. And that's why I love Bible scholars typically more than pastors, is pastors are trying to take what they learn from a Bible scholar, hopefully, or from studying God's Word, and apply it to the everyday Christian. What I found to be tough about that was a lot of it came up short, and it didn't impact my life the way I needed it to. And there's a lot of good stuff I was missing. So, like in the part about the lukewarm stuff, and the lukewarm, like churches being lukewarm, a pastor would probably make that as an illustration. They'd get some hot water, some cold water, and some lukewarm water, and be like, lukewarm water doesn't taste good at all.
God, burnt my tongue.
Yeah, and they'd make some wacky illustration about that. A scholar is going to go back and be like, what did this mean in that time period? Let me go to the ruins of that city. Let me study the culture and the city and where they came from and the people's story and how they, like, the religious views they had of the day and all that stuff, and put myself on the ground of how they understood it. And when they do that, they come away with finding out that the lukewarm was John's way of talking about how that city, I think it's Laodicea, who is called lukewarm, they didn't have a hot spring or a cold spring
I was just thinking about
in their city. So they had to pump water from afar in order to have water for their city, which meant by the time that water got to them, it was lukewarm. And it was gross. It was disgusting. Because I don't think their pipes were that good either. Mm-hmm. And then there's two cities closest to them. One had a hot spring and one had a cold spring. And water back then, they believed was like the hot water was really good for healing, and the cold water was hot water was really good for like medicinal purposes. Cold water was really refreshing. It was good to drink on a hot day. And when he says you're lukewarm, that means you're not refreshing to the world, and you're not healing to the world. You're bland. You have nothing. Like you fall short. Anyways, so I try to read from actual Bible scholars, not pastors, because I find that they don't really care about being Baptist or Presbyterian or whatever. Mm-hmm. They're just trying to understand how the Bible was written on its own terms. I will put the links in the description to our social media and also to all the books and study Bibles we mentioned that you can go and check out and hopefully buy. Also, this podcast episode is inspired by the blog. The blog has already came out. So if you're like, I don't really understand what he said, or like I want to go back and look at the notes, you can go and look at the blog, and the blog is basically all the notes I use for this episode. And it's really nice, I think.
Look out for the grammar.
Yeah. Hopefully,
I'm just kidding.
The spell check works, which I don't think it did because there was a part I got tripped up on in this. But anyways, that's Into the Fray. Thank you for listening. I'm Austin.
I'm Berlin.
Deuces.